Welcome, everyone, to the Warm and Friendly Westwood Village Rotary Club. Today is February 4th, 2021. And this meeting is now called to order. We have what I think will be a fascinating program today, so we'll get started. Tom, did you do the pledge yet?
Not yet. I will.
If you would go ahead.
If everyone would place their right hand over their left heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the United States, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Steve Day, would you share the thought for the day with us?
Absolutely, President Nancy. Well, once again, I went to my father-in-law's file of past invocations, and today's invocation was inspired by Ray's invocation from May 5th, 2005, which happened to be my 27-year-old son's 12th birthday. Boy, does time go fast.
Oh.
And per Ray's notes, Clark McQuay, we all remember Clark, gave this invocation on October 5th, 2006. So it was pretty popular. Anyway, as many of us have been enjoying home gardening, I have, Marcia and I have, and I bet a lot of you have, especially this last year. As we plan for the upcoming spring planning, I suggest, if I may, I'd like to suggest some ideas about what we might want to plant. I think we should plant 3 rows of peas: peace of mind, peace of heart, and peace of soul. And we should plant 4 rows of squash.
Oh, wonderful.
Squash gossip, squash indifference, squash selfishness, and squash grumbling. I have an idea. We should do 4 rows of lettuce. Let us be faithful. Let us be kind. Let us be patient. And let us love one another. More so today than any other time. Turnips. Turn up for Rotary meetings. Turn up for service. Turn up to help one another. Turn up with a smile. And time. Give time to family, friends, and give time to each other. And lastly, water freely with patience and cultivate with love. Thank you.
That's very good.
Oh, that's really unique and creative. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And now our songmeister and for the duration of the pandemic soloist, Ed Gold, is going to share My Wild Irish Rose with us.
Yeah, I wanted a song with the rose motif, and there are many songs that are sung with roses involved, but I thought this is one that would people enjoy, and it was the favorite of John McCormick. Do you remember John McCormick, the old Irish tenor? But here I go. My wild Irish rose, the sweetest flower that grows. You may search everywhere, but none compare with my wild Irish rose. My wild Irish rose, the dearest flower that grows. And someday for my sake, she may let me take the bloom from my wild Irish rose. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Ed. That seems like a fitting choice. And now we'd like to welcome our guests. First, we have a very distinguished visiting Rotarian, our district governor-elect, Javid. We're very happy to have you with us. Thank you for taking the time. And it's always lovely to see you.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Oh, thank you. And I'm not seeing other visiting Rotarians at the moment, but I can't see everyone. So holler if I'm ignoring you accidentally. And I see we have a Rotaractor, James Tran, joining us from UCLA Rotaract. Thank you, James. It's great to see you. Welcome.
Yeah, it's great to see you all too.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I believe that's all of our guests for now. Am I overlooking anybody? Okay. Moving right along. We have a few announcements. Rotary International is dedicating the month of February to peace and conflict prevention and resolution. Also, Rotary has announced that Shekhar Mehta, I believe it is, who is currently president-elect, will become Rotary International president in July. And the new theme for the coming Rotary year is Serve to Change Lives. I like that logo. So, and at the district level, the district has announced that Makiko Nakasone will be the district governor for 2023-2024. She is currently part of the Glendale Noon Rotary Club. And I believe, Giddy, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that she helped found the Tokyo Town Club at one point.
Yes, she chartered the Little Tokyo Club back during Elsa's year, and she's an amazing Rotarian. I know Makiko really well. She's going to be an excellent district governor.
That's great, wonderful. And there are two upcoming events that I know that our members will be interested in. The district is starting a career day for Rotaractors and Interactors on March 13th. And they will be asking for panelists in different career fields. We will be learning more about that in the near future. Also, RILA will be virtual this year. It will be held on April 23rd and 24th. So more information to come on both of these. Just know that there are two worthwhile events that are pending. And Chris Bradford, our Global Grant Scholarship Chair, has some updates for us. Chris?
Thanks, Nancy. I have some good news to share. I've been in touch with the District Scholarship Global Grants Committee, of which I'm serving on for another year. And we have in the district money for a Global Grant Scholarship for this Rotary year. We've gotten kind of a late start, but we're trying to get the word out. We have a couple of applicants that are interested. If any of you that are on this call know of anyone that might be interested in the scholarship, a scholarship which is graduate studies abroad beginning in the fall of this year, please let me know. I can forward the application to you and give you more information if you will contact me. I've been looking at my records and seeing that I've been in the Westwood Village Rotary Club. I've been the chair of this committee since 2005, which really surprised me that it's that long. And this club has had some very successful scholarship applicants who have won the scholarship at the district level. So we've had a hiatus for the last year because of COVID, but now we're really trying to get back on track. So if anyone is interested, would like more information with regard to qualifications, I'm happy to entertain questions now if Nancy has time, or please contact me, and I'm happy to help.
Chris, I was contacted, I guess it was back in November, by a woman who is a native of West LA who is starting a master's degree program in public health in the UK. And she was asking about it. I told her at that point, after communicating with you, that it wasn't going to happen this year. So should I forward her contact information to you?
Would you? I have a feeling that we were already in touch with her. Because that fits the profile of somebody that I have been, we've been communicating with. But send it to me anyway, just to make sure, though. Okay.
Okay. We'll do. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? And obviously, you can follow up with Steve after this meeting if you come across someone or think of someone. So thank you, Chris. I think that's exciting news. And
what's the sum?
Sorry?
Chris, what's the scholarship amount this year?
The scholarship in the past has been $30,000, and that is for the entire year, including transportation, room and board, and so forth. I'm assuming, although I haven't had it confirmed, that the amount is the same, 30,000.
Okay.
That's wonderful. That's very significant. Thank you again, Chris. And we have several birthdays this month, including Joanne Thompson, whose birthday is today.
Thank you so much.
So,
I will tell her that.
Yes, please do. And Terry Tegnazian celebrates her birthday on February 16th. And Adele Shalabi's birthday closes out the month on February 25th. We have a number of significant Rotary anniversaries this month, starting with Chris Gaynor on February 9th, 37 years. That's really impressive. Then the next day, Marcia Hunt, who will have been a member for 12 years. She's almost the new kid on the block at that level. Rotary International, of course, is 116 years old on February 23rd. And Jim Collins, who we were speaking of earlier, his 68th anniversary is also on February 23rd. Sally Brandt has been a member for 26 years, and I believe Sally was involved with the auxiliary prior to becoming a full member. And Bob Wessling also has been with this club for 26 years on February 23rd. And what I find so impressive when I look at this list is the tenure, the truly astonishing tenure. It's really very impressive. And I want to thank Dwight for volunteering to do the commentary for our meeting today. We still need writers for the rest of the month. And also for those of you who aren't aware, we do record these meetings, which I just realized when I got kicked off, it probably stopped recording. So, oh no, it is recording. Okay, good. So our webmaster does a wonderful job of immediately editing and posting the recordings on our website, on YouTube, and Vimeo. So thank you, Ron, for all of the work that you do to get this out there. And one of the pleasures of this role is to celebrate our members. And in particular, when it comes to the Rotarian of the Month, it really is a privilege to recognize somebody who contributes in a significant way to the vitality of the club. And in this case, is someone who is also a wonderful ambassador of our club. And I'd like to recognize past President Marcia Hunt, who is our Peace Chair. And I don't think Marcia's here today. It's probably the first meeting in forever that, that she's missed. So I'll be sending her this certificate. And I wanted to share a couple of quick things about Marcia, because Marcia's so humble. She doesn't brag about all that she does. As Peace Chair, Marcia participates in weekly meetings with Rotarians in Turkey, Hong Kong, and Macau. She also works with Rotaractors in Hong Kong. She helped facilitate the Hong Kong Peace Conference in the fall, and also co-produced a wonderful moving video that she screened for us a couple of months ago, I believe it was. She then went on to help facilitate a global cyber peace conference in Turkey in November. And now she's in the beginning stages of working with Russian Rotarians. So this is a whole and wonderful and meaningful hands-on approach to peace that I find very exciting. So I will follow up with Marcia to let her know and tell her that we missed her in the process. And now, before we introduce our fascinating guest speaker, I just wanted to share a message that I received from our past president, Bill Goodwin, this morning. And Bill, who I copy on all of our meeting invitations.
My name is Jack from
Sorry. Bill let me know that he was Rotary International's Rose Parade float chair for the 100th anniversary of the Rose Parade, which had to have been 30 or so years ago. And it's fascinating to know that we have a personal tie to, or the club has a direct tie to the Rose Parade. So Tom, I will turn things over to you and ask you to introduce our special guest speaker.
Thank you, Nancy. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce to everyone in the club, Dr. Bob Miller, a just retired community college educator and senior level administrator, who is the president and chairman of the board of the Pasadena Tournament of Roses. Now, I grew up in Pasadena. I probably have seen more rose parades than I'll ever want to see. And I know how difficult it is to be civic minded and get on the board and exceed all the way to the top. And Bob has had the distinction of being the president for one of the most difficult tournament years ever last year. And unlike the World War II years when the parade was canceled, and will again be present for this 133rd Rose Parade coming up and the 108th Rose Bowl game on January 1st, 2022. Starting at Pasadena City College, Bob's career has centered around community college system for 43 years. From student to instructor, then dean, vice president, assistant superintendent, interim superintendent, and president, and finally vice chancellor of finance and resource development for the Los Angeles Community College District, serving over 230,000 students annually across 9 colleges. He has a master's degree and a doctorate in public administration from Cal State University, Northridge, and the University of Laverne. He and his wife, Barbara, have 2 married children and 4 grandchildren and live in Pasadena. Bob joined the tournament in 1984, and his 37th Rose Parade will be waiting 1 more year. He's chaired major committees like the coronation, float construction, float entries, university and entertainment, and post parade. He was elected to the executive committee in 2014, but he's had to face the unknowns and complexities of this pandemic year all year long, and now turns the corner and heads to January 1st, 2022 for his parade dream, believe and achieve. Now, to tell you what his plans are, I see him sitting here in his wonderful rose-colored coat, bright red. Please welcome Dr. Bob Miller. Bob, you're up.
Hey, thank you, Tom, very much for that great introduction. Very kind of everybody. I always like to straighten my tie before I do this. This is the great thing about Zoom. You know, you can do that. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I had the opportunity to give a presentation to the Pasadena Rotary not too long ago. And the word got back to Tom and others that it was a presentation that you might be interested in. One of my responsibilities as president is to sort of be the ambassador in chief, so to give presentations. So I'm going to try to share the screen, and I've got a deck that I used during the pandemic year, and I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to switch a little bit later. That's going to get into what we're doing now. So I'm going to bring this one up first, and I'm hopeful that everybody can see that.
Yes.
Yes, fine.
Okay, great. And from the beginning. So first of all, this is a shot of many of our members. All the people in the red coats are what we call our past presidents, and they are there. So that's the title of my presentation. Quickly, this is the deck that I used when I was talking about some of the issues that we were engaged in as we were making a determination about what happened for the 2021 Rose Parade, which is, we call it a parade year of 2020 to 2021, culminating on January 1st. That's a brief agenda. So let's start with the decision regarding the parade. So basically the year started out as any normal year would, and then come March 1st, give or take, is when things began to hit the proverbial fan. So one of the things that we began to do is to determine from a business point of view, as well as a public health and safety point of view, what do we need to do? And when I talk about business, I talk about the literally millions upon millions of dollars that it takes to produce a parade and to get people to come to our parade, and all of the economic impact on a number of our partners. So one of the things that we did is somewhere around April 1st, give or take, is we contracted with the USC Keck School of Medicine, and specifically Doctors Hockman, Nathan, and Conti, to do a feasibility and safety study, public health and safety study regarding the pandemic and its impact on our parade. And these are the three gentlemen that were involved. And one thing that I like to point out when I do these presentations is it wasn't just the parade in our particular festival, etc., but it was all around the world. And you can see here from this little comic that COVID-19 did in just about every major and smaller festival that you can imagine. So without bearing the lead, in the end, their recommendation was very clear. Immediate parade cancellation seems to be the most prudent option. So how did they get to that point? Well, first of all, from an epidemiological point of view, we all now know, we knew then that COVID-19 is a viral respiratory illness. It spreads predominantly through respiratory within 6 feet. It has significant asymptomatic, pre-symptomatic, etc. And again, this study is roughly a year old now. It was very much in the early stages, and that, of course, proved to be correct. Very, very high risk. The general concerns, the disease was able to move very quickly, can travel very, very quickly. As Tom mentioned, anybody who's been in Pasadena knows that on the day of the event, there is anywhere from 600,000 to 1 million people that are in the city of Pasadena, and they come from all around the world. And they're all kinds of and types of folks who are working the event and visiting the event. We could not in any way, shape, or form ensure compliance vis-a-vis what we now know we dream a lot, our masks and our proper social distancing. And of course, we had significant concerns. They had significant concerns about senior citizens and certainly the homeless populations that unfortunately are a big part of Pasadena, as a lot of places these days. We not only had the parade itself to be concerned about, but we had all of our parade preparation. As you recall, the different stages, the safer at home orders, that if in fact by the time we got to the deck week or the weeks prior to the parade, we were safer at home, we'd have to shut everything down immediately. We had the public health assessment regarding all the pre-parade activities. Many of you who've been to Pasadena have been to some of our decorating sites, and you know that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people shoulder to shoulder that are in these decorating sites, and to maintain proper social distancing and avoid mass spreading events was nearly impossible. From the ban point of view, aerosols, right? You have the respiratory blowing into the instruments and how it comes out. You have the close proximity. You have woodwinds, you have horned. It was a major problem. Obviously, also the grandstands around what we call TV Corner, which is essentially the corner of Orange Grove turning around the corner to Colorado. There's probably 30,000 people in that group of grandstands alone, and they're all obviously very close proximity. Grandstands up and down the route is probably a total of 100,000. And then there's all the people that are on the street, often several people deep. So that was a problem. So they did a lot of modeling, as scientists are prone to do. And they tried to predict the number of infected. They tried to estimate the epidemiological characteristics in terms of how many people might be affected, etc. And they tried to develop some insight into what type of an outbreak could occur based upon the parade. So I'm not going to go into these numbers, but the bottom line was that there could be anywhere from, well, their average was at least 12,000 that they figured through that very limited review, that people that would go away with COVID-19, but their models really said it could be anywhere from 0 to 870. So really 12,000 to 870,000 people who could have gotten impacted both locally and then as people left Pasadena and went back to wherever they came from. So obviously it was a significant issue. It was not just the 3 doctors that did the survey, but that did the work on this study, but they surveyed a large number of public health experts from a wide cross-section of places. And that's just a list of some of those folks. In the expert surveys that they put together, they had some key questions. And I just pulled a few of them. So in this case, what do you think the likelihood is that LA County will be in stage 4 of its reopening plan? And if you remember back in those days, that essentially was that we would be available to have a parade. We wouldn't be in the stage 1, be in stage 4. And you can see that a large percentage felt that the likelihood was not, I should say a small percentage felt the likelihood was not very great that we would even be in a position to have a parade on that date. The next question was, how wise was it for people to make financial commitments? Financial commitments might be float builders, building floats. Floats typically cost a low end of 150,000 to as much as 700,000. We've even had a couple in the float that cost $1 million. So there's significant investments involved in this. So by which month do you think there would be sufficient information to determine with a high degree of confidence whether or not the Rose Parade will be feasible? And you'll note that they're really looking at November of 2020, which was basically 2 months prior to the date, or early September. The decisions about building floats, putting deposits to get band members, et cetera, all of these types of things are typically made in February, March, and April of the year leading up to the following January 1. So, you know, in the case of bands, for example, it costs anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500 per band participant to get to Pasadena. So when you multiply that out, it's usually a low end, and this is assuming they're coming from out of state, of $300,000 to $400,000, and depending on the size of the band, it could cost as much as $800,000 or more. We had a very large band out of Texas participate one year, 800 members, and they were over $1 million to get the band in and out. So significant amounts of money invested. Deciding whether or not to cancel the annual event, and you can see now that the preponderance of the people, or the majority of people, indicated that we need to cancel the parade now. So, and these are just some more quotes and things from different people. Sadly, Rose Parade does not seem at all feasible this year. Gang, this is a once in a century pandemic, and the last one of these got worse as it went along. He was referencing the I forget the year, but it was the 1900s with the flu, the flu breakout, and the Thanksgiving Day parade in Philadelphia. Literally, there were thousands of people who contracted the flu and died from that event. So that was the last pandemic. So then they talked about what the state of the research was at that time in terms of the vaccine. They did not know, obviously, that the vaccines were going to exist, but they were claiming that that was obviously a big issue. In our view, it is more likely than not that they will not be in stage 4. So that left 2 options: cancel or delay. We had set a deadline of July 1 to make our final decision, and that decision was essentially to cancel the parade. First time since World War II, approximately 75 years ago, that a decision like that was made. So these are some operational considerations, just to kind of give you a sense of what that was about. Builders need an answer on the status of the parade in order to fulfill their commitments to our flow participants. As you know, well, maybe you don't know, but typically builders put, and these are both commercial builders and self-builds, they put their orders into floral providers around the world typically by March or April. And then those are non-refundable deposits. And there's hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. So that was an issue, the 6-month lead time there. Then there was the issue of how long would it take to get these floats built? Typically, float construction starts as early as March in many respects. And if we were going to delay a decision until July, August, September, in many respects, that was not going to give builders enough time to get their floats built. And it incurred a great deal of risk. Then we talked about the decoration and the social distancing requirements. There was even a sense that we may not even get enough volunteers. There's probably, well, there's somewhere between 5,000 and 5,500 band members who participate in our band, and there is at least 3,000 to 4,000 people who volunteer to decorate floats, and there was not even a sense that we would be able to get even close to that number of people to decorate the floats. The financial investment, I've kind of alluded to that, but that was another big issue. Our float builders are not as financially stable as some might think they are. It's a very low margin kind of business. As it is, we're helping many get through this particular year, and we did not want to put them in a further precarious position. The bands, we have 22 marching bands lined up, and already by July 1, 12 had already told us that they could not participate because of local concerns that they had, parents, administrators, district superintendents, etc. We had 5 international bands lined up for last year from Italy and from Panama, from Japan, from Taiwan, and from England. And all 5 of those had bailed out. And then the other issues. So that obviously was a consideration. It's more band stuff, fundraising. One of the things that the president does, she or he travels to just about all of the bands and other events for significant help with fundraising. Everything from bake sales to major banquets to meeting with corporate chieftains in the local communities to try and raise the money. Obviously, that could not occur because most of that occurs in the springtime. Then we had relationships with many of our corporate sponsors, big names, as you can see there on the screen. And we had obligations to them, and they certainly had concerns about us. American Honda, it's the Rose Parade presented by Honda. They did not want to be associated with a super spreader event. So we had those kinds of realities as well because of the of obviously the community relations and public relations aspects of that. So we have all these relationships that we had to untie. I retired in order to be the president, mostly to be the ambassador in chief. But in reality, what I became was the person who dealt with many of these issues of deconstructing these business relationships and maintaining those relationships into future years. So they were 10 to 12-hour days every day up until about August 1st, and then things began to settle down a little bit. So I'm now down to less than that every day. And then vendors and contracting and leasing, all of those folks, the parade typically costs between $6 and $7 million a year to produce. So those are, and many of those are small vendor agreements to large contractual agreements. And we were at the point of making deposits. And we as whether it's the bus company like John Blanchard or the grandstand company or what have you, there was lots and lots of money at stake. So we had to make some decisions regarding that as well. And then the brand, basically, we did not want to diminish our brand by putting something down the street that was not somewhat representative of what our normal parades are. And we could not guarantee any of that. So we deliberated, and it didn't take us long to get to the point of cancellation, and that was a big decision. So this is just the county chart, which we don't have time to get into. So what did we do with some of the time that we had available to us? All right. So what we did is we came up with what we called reimagination task teams. We don't normally have a year to catch our breath and look at issues that need to be looked at. So one of the things that we determined, I'll talk about this a little bit, is that we would create a very significant television special that would fill our normal broadcast time, and I'll get to that a little bit later. We have a business development standing committee, and we have lots of relationships, and this was an opportunity for us to reimagine what some of those relationships could be, as well as create some additional ideas. So our budget and finance, we normally have an operating budget. We're a 501c3, but our operating budget is roughly $16 million a year. We cut $10 million out of last year's budget. So that took obviously a lot of time and effort. And we also looked at it and continue to look at it as an opportunity to look at what our current activities are and how we might be able to streamline some, leverage others, look at other opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about our television specials. So to start with, I would let you know, we have significant broadcast relationships or multi-platform distribution relationships with NBC, ABC, Hallmark, something called RFD TV, which is a major agricultural cable network throughout the middle of the United States, Univision, and obviously KTLA. And for decades, they and others have aired our parade from 8 to 10. We did not want to give up that coveted broadcast time on January 1. So we said, what can we deliver instead of our typical parade? And we didn't want to do a best of. We wanted to do something unique and something different. So what we said, and as I just said, we didn't want it to be a retrospective. We wanted it to feature A-list talent, interactive engagement. We wanted to celebrate all things that were Rose Parade. We want to talk about our history, our volunteers, everything, our participants. We really wanted to make this something very, very significant for our 6 broadcast partners. It also had to be a minimum of revenue neutral, if not a revenue generator. So we approached it as a business opportunity as well. So we did what we call a word cloud. I think many of you are familiar with how these things work. And we said, well, what is it we want this show to be? So obviously, aspirational, revival, good times ahead, football, optimism, forward focus. We really wanted it to be all of these things as we created it. So we determined what would be in it would be a number of live to tape performances. As it turned out, because of COVID, many of live performing groups that are normally on the road doing their thing weren't, and therefore many of them were happy to participate in our television show and not even get paid for it, but just to keep themselves out there and around. So in the final show, we had Rascal Flatts, we had Sheryl Crow, we had War and Treaty. We had several big acts, if you will, that were part of our show. We featured floats, we featured our volunteers, our white suiters, certainly our equestrian units, our marching bands. With the marching bands, one of the things that we did, which was very cool, all of our bands that were invited obviously have graduating high school seniors. Many of those seniors obviously, those seniors were not going to be able to march in the parade because obviously by that time they would have moved on to college. So we created a virtual high school senior band that had over 200 participants from our participating bands. The guest conductor was Kermit the Frog, and it was a really very cool thing, and they did Everything's Coming Up Roses, and it turned out very well. So we had all of these kinds of things that were featured. Our Royal Court, unique moments. We did a focus on football. We had a number of stories from our members and others, and it turned out very well. it was, it really worked out well. And I will just get to the bottom line financially. We ended up netting something close to $300,000 in profit on that because we had a number of corporate entities, UPS, Trader Joe's, Kaiser Permanente, FDD, and a couple of others, Honda, that paid to participate, and we featured, they weren't commercials by any means, but it featured their participation in our parade over the years. And also they were able to tie it back to many of the things that were occurring from a community relations point of view and a public relations point of view, and certainly to a number of things that were social justice oriented, because obviously at that point, we were, as a country, we also went through a very difficult time from a social justice perspective, as you are all aware. So it worked out very well for them. For those of you interested in the Royal Court, I'll speak briefly to this. What do you do in a year without a parade? And how do you keep that tradition going? And many people, at least in our community, really wanted to keep that tradition going. Yet there were some real challenges in doing so. So what we did is we charged our Queen and Court Committee with 3 core questions. Could we assure the health and safety of the court and all that were involved with the court? Could we provide the court and community a meaningful experience equal to what we do each year? And could we sustain a quality, the level of quality that we needed? As I talked about earlier, our brand, our image, what we represent continues to be very important to us. So then we said, you got 4 options here. You can say no Royal Court next year or last year. You could say we're going to try our virtual Royal Court. You can say just the Queen, or you can reimagine the whole thing. So the committee went to work. They first worked with what we call our executive committee sub-team to develop what the list of must-haves were. They came up with this list of things to consider, everything from wardrobe and hair and makeup to the process for selecting, to how we'd outreach to private and public schools. And, because we're very budget conscious in a year that we're cutting 10 million out of a budget, what was it going to cost? And then the basic question is, can we, the basic issue, the basic conclusion was, yeah, we can do it, but should we do it? In the end, we determined that we could not keep people safe. We determined that the experience could not be what we needed it to be for the court and for the community. We confirmed that that it just wasn't good. So and this slide really talks about that we decided no Royal Court. We affirmed that we have an ongoing and strong commitment and support for our history and our traditions relative to the structure of our Royal Court. There's concern that if we didn't have a Royal Court, we were not going to have elements of our traditions going forward, and there was a lot of concern about that. So we basically said no. Under my moving forward, and I'll speak to that in a second, or under the next several years of our executive committee leadership or presidents coming up, that we would not muck with that tradition. And the Queen and Court Committee will focus on ways to increase involvement and engagement and explore options for community engagement going forward. So believe it or not, that was a big issue for us, and we worked our way through it. All right. I am now going to get out of this presentation, and I'm going to go to this presentation. And this is the current one that I'm using now. And what I wanted to do here, I'm going to start, oops, sorry folks, I'm doing my, I want to start at slide 20 here. And so I want to go back and give you a little bit of the results of that television special. It was a very successful event. We were successful, and we know this from social media, we know this from critics, we know this from others, that we did really maintain and depict our brand in a very, very positive way. We did showcase our tournament roses, the tournament roses, and our volunteers in a positive way. We did generate and make money on that. And our broadcasters were very happy with what we delivered, and we secured those time slots and we drove a viewership. We had Warren Treaty, we had Rascal Flatts, Gary Sinise, we had several grand marshals. It went very well. We were able to maintain and hold on to the partnerships and the sponsorships that we had developed, and also we created new ones. We're even able to develop a relationship with Feeding America and do a little bit of a telethon thing where we raised several $100,000 for feeding people, as food insecurity was a big part of us, and I'll speak to that in a couple of minutes here. I think I've got about 12 minutes left. Is that about right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, just give me the hook if you need to at any point. We did showcase the senior band members, as I mentioned. We spotlighted volunteers and 5 of our past grand marshals, which was pretty cool. And we did a lot of engagement, and that all worked out from an outcome point of view. So that was very special. So now let me spend a little bit of time on what may be on some of your minds. What the heck happened to the Rose Bowl game this year? How did it end up in Arlington, Texas? I think many of you are curious about that. Well, the first thing I want to say is that every third year, the Rose Bowl game is a CFP, College Football Playoff, semifinal game. So we usually play 2 and 3 or 1 and 4. This year we did 1 and 4, and there was a reason for that. So when the issue of COVID came up, we worked obviously very, very diligently with the state of California, the county of LA, and the city of Pasadena Public Health Department to basically say, all right, we're going to have this game in the Rose Bowl. And as time went on, it was determined that, and actually when I say that, up until December 14th, we had it all figured out. Everything was good. But what eventually happened was that the 2 teams in particular and the CFP determined that it was important for them to have family and parents in the stands. The state of California, the county of LA, and the city of Pasadena said, from a public health and safety point of view, that is not going to happen. Now, if it was a traditional Rose Bowl game, we would have said to the 2 teams that are participating in the game, if you want to play in our Rose Bowl this year, you're going to do it without, another 800 people in the stadium, because we the law is the law, the land, that's it. And a typical payout for a Rose Bowl game in recent years has been in the $37 to $38 million range.
Wow.
To each one of the conferences that play. So normally, obviously, it's the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. Clearly, in a Rose Bowl games setting, they would not have turned their back on a $38 million payout to each conference. However, because we are contractually obligated to the College Football Playoff to produce the game, we are a producer of the game. It's a Rose Bowl game, no doubt, but it's also a CFP semifinal game, and therefore we have a contractual obligation to produce the game. Within that contract, for those of you who are business people or attorneys, or you may just know this, there are things called force majeures. And a force majeure are things like pandemics and earthquakes and a variety of other things. And very clearly within that contract, CFP had the right to basically invoke a force majeure and basically say, we want you to relocate that game to basically Arlington, Texas. And that's what we eventually had to do contractually. That was our obligation. Now, some of you may be aware that we have an ongoing dispute with the city of Pasadena regarding that decision. and around relocating the game, and also around our trademarks and our intellectual property. And that dispute continues because we need to get it clarified going forward. But what's important to say here is that we had no choice but to do that in terms of our obligation to the CFP, our obligation to ESPN, and the obligation to the college football world. But again, had it been a traditional Rose Bowl game, we would have left it in the Rose Bowl, and that would have been it. Now, I put that slide up here. That is a picture of obviously the Arlington Stadium, and notice all of the Rose Bowl game signage, what they call the pageantry. That giant thing at the top is a video screen. We had a number of videos. So basically, except for the fact, and I was at that game, except for the fact that it wasn't the Rose Bowl, on television, it wasn't the Rose Bowl either. Would we ever want to move this game again? Absolutely not.
Bob, your screen is showing the virtual royal court still.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, guys. So that's all this stuff that I've been talking about, you haven't seen. Eesh.
Okay, now we got you. That's okay.
Wow. Do you have that deck now? Do you see something different?
Yeah, there's the Rose Parade.
TV special, yes.
Well, why didn't you get that before? That's very upsetting. Do you still have it? Do you see the stadium now?
Now
Yeah.
we've got the stadium, right? Alabama, Notre Dame.
Man, guys. Well, that's kind of some of what you missed. All right, you didn't miss a lot. I mean, you missed well, I'm bummed out. Oh, that's the old. That's wrong. All right. Well, so much for technology. Hang on one second, folks. That's a bummer. Let's get rid of that. All right. You know what? I'm just going to talk at you now. Sorry. I can send that PowerPoint if anybody wants it. But so, well, let me do one quick thing here. This is really upsetting. God, I was so proud of myself. I thought I was on a roll.
That's okay. You explained that cancellation pretty well. But the problem is the state of California, or Governor Newsom, is the one who's responsible for not allowing the game to be played. Is that not correct?
That was correct. At the end of the day, it was the state of California who made the final decision that the game would not be the game. Well, the game could be played, but it would not be played if it had anybody in the stadium other than those who participated. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, that's why they moved it.
And that's why in the end, well, let me be a little bit more accurate. Can you guys see that now? The
Yes. Rose Parade history?
Yes. All right. Now, if I do this, do you see Passing Tournament Roses? And
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to take us to. All right. There we go. So to be very clear, the game could have been played in the Rose Bowl, but the college football playoff people made the decision that based upon the pandemic and the unhealthy, LA County, as you recall, was almost at the height of its problems at that point, and it was considered to be the hotbed of COVID in the country at that point. And at that point, the University of Alabama and Notre Dame were saying, we don't want to take our two teams to Pasadena, because a week later, almost a week later, or a little bit beyond that, one of us is going to go to the national championship game. And we do not want to take our team, our coaches, our sports staff to ground zero of COVID in the country. So we decided that we want to take it to Arlington. Now, many would argue that Texas had just as big of problems as anybody else did. But that's neither here nor there. They had a right per the agreement to invoke the force majeure. And that was the bottom line of it. And we had no way around that legally. And we ourselves could not be on the hook for what would have been millions upon millions of dollars of damages. I'll just quickly go through for another couple minutes our community relations activities that we've been involved in. We have a foundation. By the way, the football game as a football game over the years has provided to colleges and to the universities via the conferences $2.3 billion with a B dollars in payouts. 2.3 billion. Our T of R Foundation has generated about $4 million that we've given over the last 20 years to our local community. We have a community relations department that is involved quite a bit in activities with the city. Locally, we determined that we were going to focus on food insecurity and educational insecurity last year. So we did a lot of things, as you can see on the screen there, connecting STEM opportunities, science, technology, engineering, and math, working with the historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, HSIs, Hispanic serving institutions, teacher grants, all kinds of things that we were involved in. Lots of partnerships. We partnered with lots of corporate entities to give back to the community in the areas of technology insecurity, educational insecurity, and certainly food insecurity. We did a lot of local investments in our local community. Did a lot of things at the Rose Bowl with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and lots of other things that we did. The game is a contractual sellout every year, which means it's somewhere between 85, well, it's usually around 88,000 people, but often we will donate between 5,000 and 12,000 tickets to local entities, including a large number to our military. We have lots of things with government and public affairs. Time is running out. This is our good-looking board of directors, foundation board. We have different tiers of folks that get our grants, different types of organizations. An unofficial motto last year is getting through the unexpected together. The view may look different this year, but our mission never changes. For the first time, I put together for this current year, and I will say a decision was made by our board of directors, and we made the appropriate changes in our bylaws, et cetera, to effectuate that everybody who was in an assignment in 2021 would roll that same assignment for 21-22. So from the past president to me on down, whatever assignments we had in 2021, we're going to have the same assignment in 21-22, which means that myself, my wife, my family, we have the honor and privilege to be the president going forward into this year. So goals for me this year, Ambassador in Chief, I mentioned that. Clarify the Rose Bowl master license agreement issues that we have with the city, work through those issues. Work with our float builder task team to strengthen the relationships and the financial standing of our commercial builders in particular. Stand up what I call a Rose Bowl game strategy task team. Lots of changes coming forward with college football playoffs, lots of changes coming forward with the possible expansion of the number of playoff games. Our broadcast agreement is coming up for renewal. We need to really focus in on the next round, if you will. We're coming to the end of a 12-year round in 2025. Better together. We had the horrible situation that we're all aware of in terms of the equity and social justice issues, the George Floyd and many other serious things that occurred. So we've got a pretty strong initiative on that. I'm not going to go into this, but it's really tied to 3 specific pillars that you can see there. Content task team. It turns out, as we learned from our television special, that there's a lot of value in our parade video and in other video content that we can produce. So I'm going to stand up a task team to look at what those opportunities are to monetize. If it were not for the game, which is the goose that lays the golden eggs, we would not be able to produce a Bros Parade. So we have to look at more ways to try to monetize our parade in order for it to be more self-sufficient. Our reimagination task teams will continue, and we'll go forward. The Initiative for Social Justice and Equity is now what we call Better Together. And then I'm going to end with this. So the theme for 2021 was Dream, Believe, Achieve. That theme is going to carry over. The theme statement, which we share, the 2022 Rose Parade celebrates the determination of those who travel the path from dream to reality. By building a foundation of unwavering belief, our ambitions are limited only by the expectations we impose upon ourselves. Our lives, the lives of those we love, our community, and even the world can forever be changed when our hopes are nurtured with passion, fueled with knowledge, and sustained with perseverance. This year, we honor all those who reach beyond their grasp in the quest to make a dream come true. So you have a dream, you believe in your ability to work hard so you can achieve those dreams. This year, because of the experience that we're going through now, and God willing, by January 1 of 2022, we'll be in a better position. We're going to expand beyond the initial focus on education because of my 43-year career in higher education. And we're going to include a celebration of perseverance and strength, science and scientists who really the folks who got us out of this mess, health professionals, first responders, and essential workers who have helped us survive through this whole thing. So I hope to have a number of memorable moments and special moments in the 2022 parade. And we know it's not going to be exactly like past parades because we know there's going to be some level of COVID protocols we're going to have to follow. We're going to do our very best. So as is typical, I went over a little bit. I talked a lot. I said a lot. I apologize if I said way too much. I'm happy to take any questions, or we could, whatever works for you guys. Thank you very much.
Bob, thank you for being with us today. That was fascinating. And I just want to mention to those who need to leave at 1:30 to please go ahead and go. But if you don't mind staying on a few minutes longer and taking questions, I'm sure that everyone would appreciate that.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, let me ask you, what is the lowest, meanest level of participation for the new person who has never participated before?
Great question. So we have our new members, we typically bring in between 30 and 50 new members a year. We start them on what we call the 3 street committees, post-parade, formation area, and parade operations. Generally speaking, their commitment for those committees is approximately 3 meetings a year, plus their participation on parade day, or what we call the deck week, which is typically the 26th of December through the 1st. But if you're on post parade, you have an obligation that's usually, let's call it the 30th through the 2nd, in terms of building the post parade area, having the event, and taking it down. Okay. So that's how you get started. And then after you're on the 3 street committees, and a committee assignment is 2 years per committee. So at 6 years in, then you rotate to the other committees. We have a total of 32 committees in tournament, university entertainment, sports media, all kinds of great and fun things. I can tell you that not only do you meet some of the best people you'll ever meet in your life and become lifelong friends, but you have unique and really fun and different experiences as a member of the Tournament of Roses.
Fascinating. Any more questions?
This is Tom. Isn't the Rose Parade the most watched event, not only on New Year's Day, but almost throughout the year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very highly rated. We have normally domestically, there'll be between 35 and 45 million viewers across our different platforms on January 1 between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Pacific. To give you an idea, the Rose Bowl semifinal game this year, which was highly rated, was 18.8 million. And then the Sugar Bowl game was 19.3 million, I think. So our parade is very, very highly rated and continues to be. It's a tradition, you know, that which is why we didn't want to give up that time slot, frankly, why we wanted to protect it.
Right. Any more questions? Bob, thank you again so much for your time and your really interesting talk. It's greatly appreciated. And in appreciation of your joining us today, we're going to be making a donation to the Westwood branch of the Los Angeles Public Library in your name.
Very, very nice. Thank you so much. It's a great honor.
So thank you. And hopefully we'll see you again.
Absolutely. Well, we'd love to see you in Pasadena. So Tom, come back and visit, you know.
Okay.
Well, I get over there now and then. I've plenty of family there.
Okay, good. Well, I know I used to, as a kid, I used to camp out on Sierra Madre Boulevard. So maybe it was in front of your house. I don't know. Who knows, right?
Well, this goes back a long way, Bob.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe not. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Have a great day. I appreciate the
And for our members, we'll meet again, same time, same place next Thursday, the 11th. And everybody have a great, safe, and healthy week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Great to see you.